Talk Radio.
Welcome everyone to Morris Talk Live 100. I have to apologize for our technical difficulties on the show that was scheduled for yesterday. But today, the show will go on. Part 2 of Tarhaka presents the current conditions in the United States of America. What we are doing here is making an attempt to view ourselves through the eyes of other people in other countries, other lifestyles, other religions, other beliefs. Let's take a look at what these people, how they view us. What's their opinion about us? What about our educational system compared to theirs? What about Western language? We'll take a look at the United Nations Security Council. What happened in there involving the United States? What about the institution of marriage in the West compared to the East? What about our religion compared to theirs? What about our materialism compared to theirs? What is the current state of affairs in America? And why is it that everything that we do create or make, white folks want to get involved? Why? These are just a few of the questions that we're going to deal with here this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and start on these commercials, and when we come back, we'll be going in, because I got quite a few questions, okay? So y'all hold on a minute, and we'll be right back.
Today in September 2023, the United States is bringing up the student loan thing again, just like I said they would in 2022, and a lot of people took no action back then. They advertised they will give you a loan to go to school, but you don't receive a check. But anyway, you go for it. The next thing you know, you get a bill in the mail for a loan they said they gave you. And guess what? It has interest attached to it. And as time goes on, it gets bigger and bigger. because it was never meant to be paid off. It was designed for you to pay for the rest of your natural life. Get my free report. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Become a creditor instead of a debtor. Get into private. Get out of the public. Peace.
Okay, we back. Now, I don't know where to start with a lot of this stuff, but I tell you what, I do have questions because I'm constantly viewing what goes on in the United States. And when we have a habit, and I noticed that people have a habit of just simply adapting. I mean, you see some crazy, and then you just adapt. You don't get to the solution of the problem immediately. Now, the other day, they had, over in Chicago, they had a sister that called the police department because she thought she heard a prowler around the house. The police department showed up. She opened the door and let them in. Now they had to, when they come in, she was explaining to them why she called. They wanted to see if she had any identification and all of this stuff. And then the sister walked over. She had to be at least, it seemed to me, about at least 10 to 15 feet away from the officers that's standing in the doorway. And she, while she's talking to them, she had a pot on the stove that was boiling. And she took the pot off the stove in order to put it in the sink. When she picked up the pot to put it in the sink, the white police officer shouted, "Drop the pot, drop the pot." And the sister turned around and looked at him. He shot her in the head. Now keep in mind, when he did this, his body cam is turned off. He gunned this woman down, who was moving a pot from the stove to put in the sink, right next to the stove. He's standing 10 to 15 feet away. But it appeared that it's an opportunity for me to kill one of y'all. I ain't got my body camera on. I can say I forgot to turn it on. But lo and behold, one of the other officers, upon entering the house, he had the video camera on. Okay, so we got that part. But what I'm not understanding is this. When it came time to deal with the situation, they got her daddy and her mama and family members, all of them on TV. Talking about we looking for justice. What's wrong with you, man? Now I can understand the wife and the children and stuff being on TV explaining what's going on. But he, her daddy, he's standing there saying, I'm looking for justice for my baby. What's wrong with you, man? You ain't supposed to be there. You ain't got but one man to find. I don't understand. We keep going through the same thing over and over and over. Now he plastered all over the internet. The cop that did it, all over the internet. And her dad is steady up on TV telling me he's looking for justice. Man, you lost your mind. We're not going to start there. Let's take a look at the this marriage thing here. And I checked this out, and it's very, very interesting to me. But I want to see what your opinion is going to be. I want you to check it out and let me know what you think. Now, the gentleman that's speaking is not from the United States. He's giving us how they view it, where they live, okay, compared to what we do inside the United States and how we live. keep in mind, I already said that we be adapting, but what we want to do is look at both sides of the coin. See, when you there's an old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. If you standing too close, you can't see the forest for the trees. But what we want to do is stand back so that we can see everything. We want to look at it from every angle there is. We want to turn over every rock, and we want to, once again, call that lion a lion instead of calling him a rabbit. We want to stop looking at a lion in the face and then call him a rabbit, or trying to ignore something that's going on instead of doing something about it immediately. Now, I told y'all a long time ago, what we are supposed to be doing is preparing now. You should be getting your water and your food stuff, and stack up on your stuff. And you should have weapons and ammunition. And you should have a high-powered rifle with a scope on it, because you never know when you may have to go out in the woods and kill an animal to feed your family. You want to have that already ready, and all of the weapons and all of the ammunition that you need. You don't wait for war to break out to start making ammunition. But nevertheless, let's take a look at this marriage thing, and then we'll be right back.
I'm regularly reminded, again, of James Baldwin. There's a speech that you can hear from him when he was at the Press Club in Washington, D.C., and he was talking about how in America and in the West, he was talking specifically about America, but it sort of applies throughout the West, that you think simplicity, simple-mindedness is a virtue, and you are distrustful of complexity. You're distrustful of nuance. You're distrustful of anything that is hard to understand, or that can't be understood in 5 seconds. You know, you always want to get to the bottom line. Never mind whether or not whatever is at the bottom line can only be understood when you read the whole page. The marriage of Aisha. Right. That's the favorite talking point, you know. It's like when all else fails in their arguments against Islam, they bring up child marriage, the marriage of Rasulullah ﷺ to Aisha. It's like the last stone that you have to throw in your hand, the silver bullet. Your prophet married a child. Okay. With all of these types of comments and questions, and in this one, there's an incredible amount of deviousness going on here. When people ask this, I know what they're up to. And it also reveals the extent to which the Western culture has alienated people from basic understanding about being humans. So in the West, they constantly need to be told what's moral or immoral by means of laws and regulations. Even if those laws and regulations, you know, change arbitrarily on a regular basis. And even though those laws, oddly enough, are being written by the least trusted people in the society. I mean, politicians, the politicians who make these laws are regularly regarded in polling by the public as the least trusted and least moral people in the society. But when they say something is illegal, you take it as a moral absolute. Illegal means immoral. And when they legalize something, it means it's morally fine. You take your fatwas on morality from your politicians, even though you don't trust them as far as you could throw them. But why would you do that? The reason you do that is because you trust yourself even less. You trust the politicians on morality more than you trust yourself, and you trust your neighbors even less than you trust yourself. You don't trust that you have enough moral sense to make the right decision on your own. So you defer to politicians in Washington who you yourself regard as criminals. You defer to them to tell you right from wrong. So because you don't have enough sense, or anyway, you don't have enough trust in your sense, to, for example, evaluate the maturity level of young people, you said that everyone is a child until they turn 18. Means that someone could literally be just one day shy of their 18th birthday, but they're a child all the way up until midnight. And then poof, suddenly they're an adult when the clock strikes 12. Obviously, this doesn't make any sense to anyone, but you need a standard. You need a rule, because without it, you wouldn't trust your own common sense. This is a breakdown of moral reason in the West and of human understanding. And it shows that, in fact, you can't be trusted to do the right thing. You can't be trusted to make the distinction between who is a mature person and who is an immature person, someone who is actually a vulnerable, inexperienced child from someone who is, a responsible person with full cognition and agency. Even though we all know that there are people who are younger than 18 who are more mature than some 30-year-olds, and there are some 30-year-olds who are less mature than teenagers. But okay, you need a standard. You need some help on that issue, because apparently your own sense isn't sufficient. And apparently you can't be trusted to raise your own children right, or to protect them properly from predators. And then because you legalized fornication, you decided that sex outside of marriage is moral now, then you had to decide on a legal age of consent. And then you had to figure out what you're supposed to do when someone who's above the legal age of consent has sex with someone who's below the legal age of consent. And then you also had to figure out what to do when two people who are under the age of consent have sex with each other. Basically, you had to figure out all the rules for fornication. And of course, all of this is arbitrary. But throughout most of the West, none of that applies to marriage, because you still have child marriage throughout the Western world, the same as everywhere else. I mean, child marriage is legal in almost half of the states in America. In some states, you need parental consent, and in some states, there's not even a minimum age. It's the same in Europe. So you don't want adults and minors to fornicate with each other, but it's okay if they marry each other. That's your position. I mean, there's been about 500,000 marriages between adults and minors in the United States in just the last couple of decades. So basically, the age of consent, the legal age of adulthood, is only really relevant in terms of the legalities surrounding fornication, because you don't actually have an issue with child marriage. It's legal throughout. We can say most of the West, or at least half or three-quarters of the West, has no problem with child marriage. But we all know that you're much more interested in fornication than you're interested in marriage. So when you talk about the marriage of Rasulullah ﷺ to Aisha, you're looking at it from the sexual angle. Even though this was a marriage, and you have legal marriage in your societies between adults and minors, what you're looking for from us, this is what you're up to. What you're looking for from us is a defense, a moral defense for sex between adults and minors. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to trick us into normalizing pedophilia for you. Because when you bring up Aisha, you know that Muslims will jump to explain that she was menstruating. She was physically, biologically mature enough for intercourse. And we'll explain how this kind of a marriage was perfectly normal in traditional societies and has been historically all the way up until really the 20th century. And we'll provide you with all of the arguments that you need to make it okay for you to have sex with children. That's what you really want. That's why you talk about it. You're outsourcing the task of justifying pedophilia to the Muslims so that you can use those arguments to rationalize fornicating with children. That's all it can be. Because like I said, you have legal child marriages in the West. So you're just interested in the sex part. Because again, you have decided collectively that what used to only be allowed between married people should also be allowed between unmarried people. You decided that sex inside of marriage and outside of marriage are equally valid. So now you want to apply that to sex between adults and minors, because it's obviously okay inside of a marriage by your own laws, most of Europe and most of the West. So it should also be okay outside of marriage. That's what you're up to. But no, sorry. We're not going to normalize pedophilia for you. In Islam, we do not allow marriage between a mature person and an immature person. And maturity isn't exclusively physical or biological. Aisha was not comparable to anyone her age, not in her time period and not now. She was a remarkable human being. She was a remarkable person. She's what today you would call a prodigy. She was an exception in every conceivable way. Strong, mature, gifted, with extraordinary character and wisdom. Like Maryam, the mother of Isa, alayhi salam. Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was an anomaly. Obviously, she was physically mature. She was menstruating when she married Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but she was also psychologically.
Okay, now we're going to convert this show, and it's going to go up on YouTube. And when you get over there, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. You can give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, whichever way you see it now, because we just looking this lion in the face. Feel free to leave your comments, and I will check your comments and I will respond to them. Now, we're going to move on down the line, but I have a few other things to say because I want to take a look at the illusion of education inside the United States of America. Now, my position may be a little bit different from yours. I believe, and I think, because I don't believe in anything outside of myself, I think that education starts in the home. I think the child should be properly educated about their identity and their culture and their ancient story. Child, by the time that child turns 2 or 3 years old, they should be speaking a different language. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have a little grandbaby, and she does. I asked her to count. She counts. She knows how. And then I say it in Spanish. Then she started in Spanish. 2 years old. Just turned 3 in March. Just turned 3. People be amazed. But this is what's supposed to be going on across the country among our people. But what we do all too often, we feel like, well, we got to go to work. I got to take my child and put it in the daycare and give somebody else control of their thinking. Think about that for a minute now. And then we are confused, appear to be confused, when the child grow up and start doing all kind of crazy. You see what I'm saying here? They where we believe that the world owes us something, and I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. And then we got this society outside home that's going to force your child to do something. And the child is helpless because you've abandoned the child. You've turned them over to someone else to put what they want in their brain. And I told you about the woman that went to the school, and the teacher up in there and teaching all the children in there about the LGBTQ thing. And the sister went up in there, man, woo! She was raising holy, 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 you know what, up in that thing, man. And I look at other countries and the way they do things. Now, I was watching a program on 60 Minutes one time, and they was trying to find out why the Japanese economy was, man, they was busting over there. It was growing and fast. And I mean, they was, you know, everybody was cooperating, and America couldn't figure out, well, why are you succeeding like this? You know, what are you doing? And they interviewed this Japanese guy that owns this factory. He said, when it's time for our employees to go home, they don't leave. They'll clock out, and then they'll clock back in and continue to work. And they said, well, why are they doing that? Over in our country, when they get a chance to clock out, they're out the building. They ain't trying to do nothing. The Japanese said what we did with our employees when we hired them, we gave them documents to sign. So on a daily basis, after they do their work working for the company, they can get back on the clock, and this time they are now officially working for themselves in order to own stock in the company, so one day they'll be part owner of the company. That's why they're doing it. I said, wow, that is outstanding. But when America came, I said, well, okay, when y'all get back over here to the United States, things should start changing. Now the doggone thing changed. No, you work for the hour, and after that, you can retire. We'll give you a gold watch, and we'll give you some retirement benefits. But no matter what, we are not going to share the wealth with you. You can work for us until you're 65 years old. But we're not going, making us rich, but we're not going to share the wealth with you. Our company made $38 million, but we paid you $10 an hour. But we're not going to share the wealth with you. Isn't that something? That's how it's done in the West. Oh, we have profit sharing. We have a 401k, and we have this. No. Share the wealth. Share the wealth with me. Break me out, man. Be honest with me. Don't nickel and dime me. Don't do that.
We'll be reasonable. Let's be reasonable. If you want to have a military base, for example, if you want to have a military base in one of our countries, well, okay, you have to accept a military base of ours in your country. If you want to police security in Africa or the Middle East or Asia, okay, let's make it reciprocal. And we'll send our security forces to Chicago. We'll send our security forces to San Francisco, to Detroit, and to New York. Do you see how ludicrous that sounds? When someone suggests doing to you what you do to everyone else every day, I mean, do you want to have the New York City subway patrolled by armed Senegalese forces to protect your civilians against your armed mass shooting terrorists that you have over there? Well, fair is fair. Should be like this. I mean, the truth is your cities are more dangerous than ours, but you have your troops all over our part of the world. How does that make any sense? Even though it's none of your business. Our security is none of your business, just like your security is none of our business. But let's play it the way that you play it.
Okay. What you think? If we have our military bases in their country, why are the military bases not in ours? That's called equality. We don't, of course, it has to be one-sided. And I'm just going on what I'm seeing, because sooner or later, we as a country are going to have to be honest with our own selves. We're going to have to stop the charade and be absolutely honest with ourselves. Sooner or later. Hold on, let's take another quick commercial break, and I'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Tarhaka. You know, there's a difference between what you believe and what you know for a fact and can prove. I live in the private and can prove it. I've exercised my freedom of right to travel and can prove it. I don't have a mortgage and can prove it, and much, much more. And so does many other people across this country and abroad who are secured party and creditors living in the private. Debt is a burden. It causes people a hard time in life. They can't live live in peace fast enough. Contact me at tarhakadebtelimination.org. You can call me and I'll answer the phone. Leave your email information on my website and get my free report. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Get out of debt. It's nothing but a burden. You can't move forward with that. That's a bunch of junk.
Okay, we're back. Now, what I want to look at this time, because I was listening to the gentleman, Cat Williams, and he was talking about ancient knowledge, and it was quite extraordinary what the young brother was saying. And he's a very, very intelligent young man. Don't make no mistake about it. He's a comedian, but he's sharp brother. And I was listening to him, and he was giving us a breakdown of some things. And I decided to see if I can run this past y'all. And when you get a chance, let me know what you think. Keep in mind, we're going to convert this over there. We're going to put it up on YouTube. But right now, we're live. Grand rising to you all. And so we're going to delve down into that, and then when we come back, then we can continue on. There's a whole lot of things that's going on, and in a lot of cases, we're simply not asking the right questions. We'll look at things, and we won't say anything. We'll stand right there and look at an opportunity, look dead at it, and just let it pass us right on by. But anyway, let's take a look at Brother Cat, see what he got to say.
You won't believe what Cat Williams just revealed.
It's not really about knowing anything. It's about where to go to get the information.
He's unlocking ancient secrets and dropping knowledge bombs that will leave you stunned.
Even Tesla says that this is where he came to get the information.
From Nikola Tesla and where he took his knowledge from, to the mysterious device the Anunnaki wear on their wrists, to the real purpose of the pyramids and hidden technologies.
People were coming to this region for their information and their knowledge and their things that were forbidden, and these were the highest of human civilization.
Let's dive in and uncover what Cat has to share.
Holy sh**.
Is this weed talk, Joseph?
No, this is so legit.
Cat Williams makes a compelling argument about the true sources of ancient wisdom, suggesting that the ruins of temples and churches were not merely places of worship, but pivotal centers of education and knowledge transmission.
If you were to read like thousands of books about people that knew a bunch of like you start finding out that it's not really about knowing anything, it's about where to go to get the information. So like when we look at all the ruins all around the world, like we're not seeing ruins of colleges and universities and all of that. We're seeing temples and synagogues and churches.
Historical research supports this view, as many ancient temples around the world, such as the Library of Ashurbanipal in Mesopotamia or the House of Life in ancient Egypt, were indeed centers of learning, storing vast collections of texts and serving as educational hubs where knowledge on various subjects, including agriculture and astronomy, was imparted. Yet, this brings us to a deeper, more enigmatic question. Where did this information originate? Indeed, priests and scholars of ancient times passed their knowledge on to others. But who were the original custodians of this wisdom? Who were the first teachers? This question probes the very roots of human understanding and civilization. Ancient myths often attribute this knowledge to divine sources or celestial beings. Consider the Sumerians, who credited their knowledge to the god Enki, or the Egyptians to Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. These figures are portrayed not merely as deities, but as pioneers of knowledge, who handed down essential information that formed the basis of these advanced societies. Such narratives, while steeped in mythology, may symbolize early humans' attempts to explain the acquisition of complex ideas and technologies that seemed beyond the reach of ordinary human ingenuity at the time.
100% of the writings across the world, whoever said anything about space or the universe or what was out there, why were all of them correct? It's not even possible. Like, how did they know that Mars was the red planet, and why was it a worldwide fact? Planetarily, that Saturn had rings, like, based upon what information? Because nobody worldwide is disagreeing.
Expanding on Kat's observations about cosmology, it's fascinating to consider the astronomical accuracy of ancient civilizations. For instance, the Dogon people of Mali have long been known for their detailed astronomical understanding, which includes knowledge of the Sirius star system that is remarkably precise. Scholars have debated how such precise knowledge could have been obtained without advanced technology. This aligns with Kat's suggestion that such detailed cosmic knowledge might have been imparted by advanced beings or through means not yet fully understood by modern science. Moreover, Kat points out the global consistency in ancient knowledge about planets like Mars and Saturn. This observation can be linked to ancient texts and artifacts. For example, the Sumerians, known as one of the first advanced civilizations, depicted planets in a way that remarkably aligns with modern astronomical data. The Babylonians, who inherited and expanded on Sumerian knowledge, had a sophisticated system of astronomy and could predict celestial events with great accuracy. These instances could suggest that ancient civilizations had access to a now lost compendium of astronomical knowledge. Or perhaps, as Kat implies, they were beneficiaries of knowledge from extraterrestrial visitors. This brings us to an intriguing theory supported by numerous proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, that knowledge of such precision and depth suggests a possible transmission from advanced, non-human sources. This theory, while controversial, is bolstered by the uncanny alignment of ancient knowledge with modern scientific findings. Let's get back to Cat Williams and try to understand where he wants to take us.
Even Tesla says that this is where he came to get the information. But if you follow that information pathway, it leads you to this character called Thoth. And the emerald tablets of Thoth are literally mind-changing and mind-blowing.
The discussion between Cat Williams and Joe Rogan touches upon the intriguing and mystical emerald tablet, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary figure blending aspects of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. The Emerald Tablet, also known as the Tabula Smaragdina, is a compact, cryptic text highly regarded in the fields of alchemy and Hermetic philosophy. The Emerald Tablet, also known by its more arcane name, the Tabula Smaragdina, is not just any ancient document. It is a portal to profound truths and alchemical secrets. The origins of this compact and cryptic text are veiled in the mists of time, with the first known appearances in Arabic sources from the 8th or 9th century. Yet, its influence rippled through the centuries, captivating the minds of European alchemists during the medieval period when it was translated into Latin. The tablet's opening line, "As above, so below," resonates with an otherworldly wisdom, suggesting a deep correspondence between the heavens and the earth, the macrocosm and the microcosm. This principle of correspondence implies that by understanding the small, we can grasp the mysteries of the large, and vice versa. It beckons us to see the universe as a vast, interconnected web where each part reflects the whole. The content of the Emerald Tablet is a series of arcane aphorisms that hint at the processes of transformation and the unity of all existence. It speaks of the one thing, the primal substance from which all things emanate and to which all things return. This one thing is described as having the power to perfect the imperfect and transform the base into the sublime, a core tenet of alchemical practice. One of the more tantalizing passages reads, "Its father is the sun, its mother the moon. The wind carries it in its belly. Its nurse is the earth." This allegorical language suggests a cosmic process involving celestial and terrestrial forces, a dance of elements that leads to the creation and transformation of matter. For alchemists, this was not merely about turning lead into gold, but about achieving spiritual enlightenment and unity with the divine. Cat Williams mentions the fascination that even Nikola Tesla, the visionary inventor, had with such esoteric texts. The idea that Tesla might have drawn inspiration from these hidden sources only adds to the tablet's allure. It hints at a wellspring of advanced knowledge, couched in metaphor and symbol, accessible only to those who can decode its secrets. The Emerald Tablet is part of a larger body of work known as the Hermetica. These texts are divided into two main groups: the Technical Hermetica, encompassing writings on astrology, alchemy, and magic, and the Religio-Philosophical Hermetica, which delves into mystical and philosophical discourses. Together, they form the foundation of Hermeticism, a tradition that has influenced countless esoteric and mystical schools of thought. The tablet's mysterious power lies in its ability to inspire endless interpretation and speculation. It suggests a hidden path to knowledge, a secret alchemical process that can transform the seeker both materially and spiritually. For those drawn to the occult and the mystical, the Emerald Tablet is a cipher waiting to be unraveled, promising profound insights and perhaps enlightenment.
It's given in first person, and that's not possible. The things that are being said are impossible. Enough time has passed, though, that it's not like that. He literally says, hey, there's a spaceship on Earth, and this is where it is.
Ever wondered what that necklace Cat Williams was wearing in all those super viral interviews actually signifies? It's not just a striking piece of jewelry. It holds a secret that ties back to ancient and mysterious origins. Cat Williams, in a moment of revelation, shared with Joe Rogan the fascinating story behind his unique necklace, dispelling common assumptions and diving into the realms of ancient lore and forgotten technologies.
This is that thing that you see that all the Anunnaki guys that have that look like a wristwatch, and they always have it, and you're always trying to see what that is.
Yeah, what is that?
It is a time, it's a compass. It's a time-keeping compass.
As Cat Williams and Joe Rogan peel back the layers of ancient mysteries, we are drawn further into the enigmatic world of the Anunnaki and their astonishing technologies. The Anunnaki, often depicted in ancient Mesopotamian carvings, are shrouded in intrigue. These deities, revered by the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians, were said to have descended from the heavens, bringing with them unparalleled knowledge and advanced technologies. One of the most perplexing aspects of Anunnaki depictions is the enigmatic watch device frequently seen on their wrists. Scholars and enthusiasts alike have puzzled over this artifact, trying to decipher its true purpose. Was it merely symbolic, or did it serve a functional role far beyond our current understanding? Cat Williams suggests that this device was a timekeeping compass, a tool that combined the functions of a clock and a navigation instrument. Imagine possessing the ability to measure time precisely, while simultaneously navigating the vast landscapes with perfect accuracy. Such a device would have granted its bearer immense power and control, allowing them to traverse great distances and return unerringly. The Anunnaki themselves are cloaked in mystery. Ancient texts describe them as godlike beings who bestowed civilization upon humanity. They are credited with teaching the Sumerians advanced agricultural techniques, astronomy, mathematics, and even law. But who were they really? Some theories propose that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial visitors, beings from another world who brought their advanced knowledge to Earth. Others suggest they were highly advanced humans or demigods, their wisdom and technology remnants of a lost epoch. Numerous ancient artifacts support the existence of the Anunnaki and their technologies. Clay tablets, cylinder seals, and carvings depict these beings with remarkable consistency. The watch device is one of the most intriguing elements, appearing in various forms and contexts. Could this device have been a gift from the gods, a tool that enabled its users to manipulate time and space? Consider the ancient Sumerian king list, a chronicle that lists kings who reigned for impossibly long periods, spanning thousands of years. Some interpret this as evidence of the Anunnaki's influence, suggesting that these kings were, in fact, Anunnaki rulers who possessed longevity through advanced technology or knowledge. Cat Williams's necklace serves as a modern homage to these ancient devices, symbolizing a bridge between the past and present. It hints at the possibility that humanity's understanding of time and space is still evolving, and that ancient civilizations may have possessed knowledge that we are only beginning to rediscover. Theories about the Anunnaki and their technologies continue to captivate the imagination. Some researchers believe that remnants of this advanced knowledge can be found in sacred geometry, pyramids, and other ancient structures. These monuments, with their precise alignments and sophisticated construction, suggest a deeper understanding of the cosmos. What if the stories of the Anunnaki are not mere myths, but remnants of a forgotten history? What if their technologies, like the timekeeping compass, hold the key to unlocking new dimensions of understanding? But then, the conversation takes a surprising turn, diving directly into the mysteries of the pyramids of Egypt. Watch what Kat has to say next. It will make you wonder.
No people built the pyramids.
No people?
No.
Who built them?
No people built the pyramids. And if you look around the world, you see certain telltale things that let you know that advanced machinery was in usage.
For
This
sure.
whole thing where slaves are stronger people is a fallacy. We like to believe that slaves are stronger. Slaves are weaker because they don't eat the right food and they live a terrible life.
Cat Williams's claim that no ordinary people built the pyramids opens the door to a world of ancient wonders and advanced technologies. His assertion challenges the traditional narrative, urging us to reconsider the capabilities and conditions of ancient builders. The idea that slaves, often believed to be the primary labor force behind these colossal structures, were actually weaker due to poor living conditions, adds another layer of complexity to this ancient mystery. Cat's statement about advanced machinery being used in ancient times is both provocative and thought-provoking. If we look around the world, from the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Pumapunku in Bolivia, we see evidence of precision cutting and moving of massive stones that modern technology would struggle to replicate. The exacting measurements and alignments found in these structures suggest the use of sophisticated tools and knowledge. Consider the intricate stonework of Pumapunku, where massive blocks of stone are cut with such precision that they fit together seamlessly without mortar. Similarly, the Great Pyramid's construction, with its enormous blocks of limestone and granite, some weighing up to 80 tons, challenges our understanding of ancient engineering. How were these stones quarried, transported, and assembled with such accuracy? The answer might lie in the forgotten technologies and wisdom of ancient civilizations. The conversation takes an even more intriguing turn as Kat explains.
We've been led to believe that this is how much they worshipped their dead bodies, but the evidence doesn't show any of that. Like when you see inside when they have those intricate carvings and paintings and stuff in gold and stuff, you have to remember this is in a windowless room, folks. There's no candle soot, there's no... It's clearly a power plant and built specifically for that location on this planet.
This statement invites us to reconsider the purpose of the pyramids. Traditionally viewed as monumental tombs, the lack of soot on the walls in windowless rooms indicates that the ancient Egyptians did not use conventional lighting methods such as torches or candles. This raises the question, how did they illuminate these intricate interiors? Cat's suggestion that the pyramids functioned as power plants offers a tantalizing alternative. Cat continues.
What do you think it was powered by?
The hot water springs underneath it.
The concept of using hot water springs as an energy source for the pyramids hints at an advanced understanding of geothermal energy. This idea aligns with theories suggesting that the pyramids were built with a specific knowledge of Earth's natural energy grid, possibly utilized to generate power. The intricately carved hieroglyphs and paintings inside the pyramids, created without any visible means of lighting, further support the notion of advanced technology. The precise and complex nature of these carvings implies that the ancient Egyptians had access to light sources far beyond our understanding. This leads us back to the Anunnaki and their supposed advanced technologies. If the Anunnaki did share their knowledge with early humans, it is conceivable that such knowledge included the use of advanced machinery. The watch device, a timekeeping compass, hints at a level of technological sophistication that could extend to construction methods and tools. The Anunnaki, known for their supposed mastery over time and space, might have also imparted techniques for manipulating massive stones and achieving precise alignments. The notion of advanced machinery is not limited to Egypt. Around the world, ancient sites exhibit signs of high technology. The stone structures of Easter Island, the megalithic temples of Malta, and the intricate carvings of Angkor Wat all point to a global phenomenon. Could it be that a shared, advanced knowledge once existed, only to be lost or hidden over the millennia? These enigmatic sites, scattered across the globe, challenge the conventional understanding of our ancestors' capabilities. Cat Williams' insights compels us to re-examine historical narratives. If slaves, weakened by harsh conditions, were not the primary builders, then who were? Skilled artisans and laborers with access to advanced knowledge and tools? Or perhaps a more enigmatic answer lies in the involvement of beings like the Anunnaki, whose influence and technologies remain a subject of speculation and wonder. In conclusion, whether we're exploring the Anunnaki, the pyramids, or any of the countless ancient mysteries and hidden technologies, one thing is crystal clear: everything stems from a deeper source. Be it the vast expanse of the universe, or an intelligence beyond our comprehension, something profound underlies our reality and breathes life into it all. I call this source God. Throughout history, across different cultures and civilizations, humanity has been in a relentless pursuit of something greater. This quest for understanding, inscribed in our very essence, unites us all. Ultimately, all these paths, no matter how diverse or ancient, lead us to the realization of God, the ultimate source of all knowledge and existence.
The greatest trick is to make us believe that people back then were dumber and we're smarter.
Right.
And that whole thing is a fallacy.
Yeah, that's definitely not real.
Okay. Now, I have a question for you. Do you have these books in your personal library? Because I've been telling people for years and years and years, every brother is supposed to have a library in his home so that his children have access to this knowledge. I have these books. Now, I have to say that I think Billy Carson did a wonderful job on the book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. And inside the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, inside the Emerald Tablets, period, Thoth stated the following: I buildeth I the great pyramid. That's what he said. Buildeth I build the great pyramid. Okay? Now, when you bring that up to other people, they're, well, man, I don't know, that's the first time I ever, well, you had to do some research. Whatever it is that you're involved in, research it. Take the time to research. Do the research on what you're trying to deal with. Here? Okay. Now, we're going to get down in this thing. Why do white people got to be involved in everything that we're doing? Why? What's that all about? Let's get down in there and let's check this out and take a look at that, because I noticed that the other day when I was telling you that I saw the stuff about the cop and the gunning the woman down with a pot of water, moving it from the stove to the sink. Next thing you know, I seen all the community out there in the streets marching, protesting, and then I looked in the crowd full of white folks too. Well, wait a minute, hold on, what you protesting about? Why are you there? And as far as the brothers and sisters are concerned, there should never have been a protest. What all of y'all supposed to be doing and all the people supposed to be doing is in a locked house discussing what you are going to do about it and trying to find out where the man is that shot the child. That's what you're supposed to be discussing. Everybody in there is supposed to look like you. But nevertheless, let's get down in here and check this out.
Well, for 40 years, I've just been talking to black people. Once in a while, I talk to a white audience. And I have to say this to the Caucasians, see, they call Africa sleeping giant. Hell, if I went into a place with great people and I'm a dwarf, I could look good if they're all asleep. Why is it that when we want something that's all black, all of a sudden this is reverse racism? You got to be in on everything we do. Let's listen to what they say and see, what are they talking about? What are they doing?
Hey, call me Louis. This is my spot. Louis spot. You know how you could be taking a look at some African meeting or just a random black event, and then in the midst of all that you could randomly come across some spots of white men whom you really don't know the reason as to why they're there, but then they are really there. Turns out there's a better explanation as to why this is the case, as explained by Mr. Louis Farrakhan. Take a case in example when the BRICS summit was being held in South Africa. The French president, even though he's not a member, wasn't invited, still wanted to be part of that particular meeting. This is the explanation.
I want to show you how silly we sound. You know, I'm an American. And I am an Irishman. And I'm an Italian. And I'm from Thailand. Oh, that's nice. But look at what you're saying. You carve a little piece of the earth out, and you create for yourself a nationality. See? As though now that little piece of earth that you call Thailand, another one you call Jamaica, Barbados, Montserrat, Trinidad, Guyana, Ghana, Egypt, as though that's not the earth. The earth is one. That's your man-made foolishness. You make up these things, then you give them some kind of credibility. As though now, because I'm an American, I'm born in the United States. Does that make you any different from somebody born in China or India? The earth is what you come from. And the earth is not many. The earth is one. You got black earth, brown earth, red earth. You got sand, white earth. But hell, it's earth. Look, you can die, if you from Thailand, die in Korea. See, will the earth reject you? See, nationality is what got us all screwed up. So if I'm from Greece and you're from Italy, well, man, I don't like Italians. What the hell are you talking about? You sound so stupid to be college people talking about you don't like somebody because they're from a certain part of the earth. Give me the chemistry of that part and show me that you are made of a different chemistry, fool. You got all this sexist madness, nationality madness, color madness. Look at the heavens and the earth. He makes every planet a different color. This planet shows up blue. Mars shows up red. Now you're going to say, well, we better because we the blue planet. And Mars say, hell no, we better because we red. You're a fool. Nobody is better because of your color. You're better because of your character. I'm sorry, baby. I was trying to wake up the grown folks. Are you all right? Racism is sick because when God creates us and makes us into tribes and families, and each family has different characteristics, we're so childlike and immature. We can see and understand in the study of rocks, the colors in rocks and the difference in their characteristics, but you will never say, oh, this rock is better than that rock. But then some of us are dumb enough. I mean, we've given value to some rocks. You got a flower garden. Each flower has its beauty, has different characteristics, but when you put it in a bouquet, it's really beautiful. You look at the stars, you see the constellations. One star may be brighter than the other, but the beauty of the constellation is the beauty of how they fit. One lighter, one less bright, but when they're in that constellation, you look up and you marvel, it's just magnificent. But when it comes to the human family, we done got crazy now. Just crazy as hell. Just look at you. And I have to say this to the Caucasians, see. No. See, you all started this craziness, you know. You started this. See, whoever got you started on that path really messed you up. You know, I'm a white person. And you know, because I'm white, I'm better than all these darkies. Well, you can psych yourself up like that, you know. Don't get in the sun too much now. You look at my hair, you say, oh, that burr head. Well, we know what a burr is. Some of us fell into the trap, and if hair is straight, we call it good hair. I didn't know that hair had a moral quality, you know what I mean? I think hair is hair, it has a function. So these are characteristics. My hair rolls up. Yours is stringy, straight. Well, hey, you got hair, baby. That's good. You know what I'm saying? Some of you missing it. Whether it's rolled up or straight, you ain't got none. It's going to be all right, though. Because it never was in the hair. It's what's in the head. Now, see, when you set up color, now this is a sickness. I don't have time to dig deep into how this messes up your mind. See, they call Africa sleeping giant. They call Asia sleep. Well, Europe, you awakened from the Dark Ages. You had your Renaissance. You were asleep too. But you woke up while the other part of the world was still asleep. Well, now look, don't give yourself too much credit. Hell, if I went into a place with great people and I'm a dwarf, I could look good if they're all asleep. I mean, I could, if all the Jeffrey Ballet is asleep, and I walk in the room and do my little, you know, and say, oh, Farrakhan is magnificent, until the Jeffrey Ballet wakes up, then maybe I'll look like an odd fella trying to make it. So don't pat yourself on the back because the earth has been asleep That was a natural condition in order to allow you to rule. Every rule comes in turn. Allah says in the Quran, I will let you rule and see how you act. Well, now we see how you act. And you haven't acted so good. So somebody got to come along and help you. Or you got messed up. And really kind of messed up the world. Because now color's a big thing. Color's a big thing. Even among us. Don't marry her. Why not, Ma? She's too black. Don't marry him. He's too black. Boy, 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 boy. This is a sick world. You know, when you talk to black audiences for 40 years, see, my people understand me. You know, our culture is the same. Our history is the same. Our suffering is the same. So when I talk to black people, I mean, they're right there with me. They understand. You know that as a Jewish person, there's certain language that you can use with a fellow member of the Jewish family, and you can say things to each other, but if somebody else tries to say that, that's an insult to you. So when you talk just to black people, you could offend white people. Because the stuff that we understand, when we are talking to one another, maybe when you bring others into that equation, you become offensive. Okay? Well, for 40 years, I've just been talking to black people. Once in a while, I talk to a white audience. But I realize now I can't do that anymore. I got to talk to black people all right enough, but I can't leave you out of this equation. I got to be able to sit with white audiences so you will understand me where I'm coming from. Because the message that I have is as good for you in your sickness as it is good for black folks in our sickness. Oh, yeah. And since we all living here together, giving each other hell, maybe I do need to talk to you a little bit. But I want you to know I don't hate Jewish people. That's right. No, man. But what I dislike is an inordinate control. See, these black people don't control Jewish life. That's right. We don't control white life, do we? We're not members of the Anti-Defamation League or B'nai B'rith. We don't belong there. And nobody's saying you shouldn't have Jewish organizations or Italian organizations or Irish organizations. Why is it that when we want something that's all black, all of a sudden this is reverse racism? Come on. Don't you think that we as members of a family ought to be able to meet to discuss our family problem, to resolve conflict among ourselves? Does it mean if we are all together as a family and we say to you, no, you can't come into this meeting because this is a family? Well, look, if the Bittermans are meeting and I'm the Wassermans, and the Bittermans have a problem in their family, If I knock on the door and Mr. Bitterman said, Mr. Wasserman, you know you're welcome, but right now I'm dealing with a problem in my family. Could you come back at another time? I'm not going to be angry with Mr. Bitterman, because that family problem is important to be resolved, because how can you invite somebody into your house when your house is out of order? So we as a people have to iron out our problem. And it has nothing to do with hating white people. And the reason you think that we are like hating you when we get together, you got to be in on everything we do. Let's listen to what they say and see, what are they talking about? What are they doing? That's because your guilt is such that you think we are together plotting against you.
Now, that sums it up for this video. What do you guys think? Share thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Let's have a proper discussion about this without having me impose my opinions and ideas.
All right, everybody, we're back. I think I got some out of that. I've seen that over and over and over. And there ain't no doubt about that. I hope you, if you disagree, let me know. Okay? See, I've heard people say, well, you know, Farrakhan, this, that, and the other. Well, I don't want to hit the messenger in the head. I'm too busy trying to get the message. I want to hear what you got to say. You know, it doesn't matter who said it. I'm trying to find out whether or not it's true or not. It doesn't matter to me who said it. I need to know whether or not it's true. Okay? All right. We're going to take a little break and take a little break, and then we will be back in a few minutes. So y'all relax, and we'll be right back. Okay? right, everybody, we're back. Now, what we're going to do now, I want to take a look at this United Nations thing and see what happened over there. United Nations Security Council. I want to take a look at it and see what happened. And I want y'all to pay attention so we can see. Keep in mind we're still looking at both sides of the coin. And we'll, because all too often, a lot of times, things are not being broadcast to us through the media. We had to dig for it and find it. They want to stuff stuff in the bag. Well, let's check this out.
Well, as I said, when the ICJ ruling came down on South Africa's request to order emergency provisions for the people of Gaza, which was really a very mild and inadequate ruling, basically the ICJ said that Israel should take steps to ensure that they were not committing genocide. As I said at that time, the response to that ruling was always going to be that another resolution would be proposed in the UN for a ceasefire. Since the only way that measures could be taken to prevent Israel from committing a genocide would be for there to be a ceasefire. So Algeria called for this, saying that the ICJ ruling had to be taken to mean that the court was, in fact, calling for a ceasefire. And so that's what Algeria has asked the United Nations to order. Now, the United States has already said that when the vote takes place on Tuesday, if the resolution is worded as it was originally proposed, that is, if the original wording is not changed, and the vote is called according to what Algeria wrote in that resolution, well, they said that they're going to veto it. They're going to veto a demand for a ceasefire again. And they're going to do that. They're going to refuse to allow the global consensus in favor of a ceasefire to be implemented while Israel is on the brink of launching a full-scale attack on the last parcel of land in Gaza that they haven't already decimated, Rafah. Israel is threatening to attack Rafah with over 1 million civilian refugees, displaced people, people who have fled from northern and central Gaza, escaping Israeli death and destruction, Zionist death and destruction using American weapons, American fighter jets, American attack helicopters, American bombs and missiles, and they're going to carpet bomb those innocent people who've been cornered in Rafah. And the whole world is demanding that Israel not do it. Everyone is telling them not to attack Rafah. But the United States is saying that if the UN orders Israel to stop attacking, then they'll veto that. In other words, the United States is going to tell Israel to go ahead. They're going to tell Israel to go ahead with genocide. Go ahead with wantonly murdering countless innocent civilians in Rafah who are huddled in refugee tents, who are starving, and who are, all of whom are, the last surviving members of their families. The U.S. is telling Israel to finish them off. It's genocide by veto. The United States has announced to the world that they're going to inflict a genocidal veto against the helpless people of Gaza on Tuesday. And they said that they're going to do it. You won't believe this. They said that they're going to do it because they don't like the wording of the ceasefire proposal. Imagine. Because they don't like the wording. They're approving the massacre of thousands of people, and they aren't ashamed to use semantics as their justification. Meanwhile, official after official in the United States has come out against the planned attack on Rafah. Even Joe Biden said that Israel shouldn't do it. They say this out of one side of their mouth, but out of the other side of their mouth, they say that they'll veto the ceasefire. This is next-level hypocrisy. I mean, we're used to them not practicing what they preach and not preaching what they practice, but now they're not even preaching what they preach about what they practice. They're saying, yes, you're right, we agree with you. We agree with you, world, that Israel shouldn't commit genocide, but we don't appreciate the way you say it. They shouldn't commit crimes against humanity. They shouldn't commit war crimes. You know, they shouldn't perpetrate genocide against the Palestinians. We agree with all of that, but we don't like your tone. Look at the hubris. Look at the belligerence of that. The U.S. doesn't mind telling the world that they're willing to watch innocent people get slaughtered because America wants to be pedantic. Well, you know, there's another set of words. There's another piece of phrasing that America might not like. There's some more wording that the U.S. might object to, and it's in the United Nations Charter, the charter that they already agreed to, the contract that they already signed, and that's Article 6, which says that a member of the United Nations which has persistently violated the principles contained in the present charter may be expelled from the organization by the General Assembly upon the recommendation of the Security Council. Maybe you should have read that contract more carefully before you signed it. You should have been just as circumspect about the wording of the that UN document as you are about the wording of a resolution against genocide, because we read it. And more people all around the world are reading it, from Marrakesh to Manchester, from Cape Town to Kuala Lumpur, from Davos to Dusseldorf. And when we read persistently violates the principles of the Charter, why, that sounds like what the United States would write in their bio if that whole country had a social media account. If the people of the world could give America a Yelp review, that's what we'd say. Persistently violates the UN Charter. The grassroots globally are collectively recognizing that the presence of the United States in the United Nations, and more specifically with their seat on the Security Council, with their unilateral supremacist veto power, that this is the linchpin that holds the machinery of genocidal Zionist aggression together. Remove that linchpin, and the whole Israeli war machine falls apart. Over the past 5 decades, the United States has vetoed 53 resolutions against Israeli violence. They've used their veto power more times to insulate Israel from global condemnation than for any other purpose. America's veto is nothing but a shoot-to-kill order against the Palestinians, and it operates as cover fire for Israel to shield it from any international accountability and from ever having to make peace with the region. Yes, America has used its veto power to veto peace, to veto justice, to veto human rights, to veto essentially every principle that the UN Charter claims to stand for. Why, you could make a case for persistent violation of the UN Charter, the UN Charter's principles by the United States, just by citing nothing more than their use of the veto. Never mind all of America's own crimes, or should I say the crimes that they committed directly, because you have their own war crimes, their own crimes against humanity perpetrated by the United States alone, and then you have all of the crimes that they commit via their proxies, such as Israel's crimes, because Israel's crimes are America's crimes, and everyone knows it. Israel is just America's henchman. The U.S. arms, trains, and funds them, and protects them, and covers for them. Why, it would be the easiest RICO prosecution in history if Israel and America were just run-of-the-mill mafia thugs. If Israel is being charged with genocide, then the United States should be right next to them in the dock with charges against them of conspiracy to commit genocide, orchestration of genocide, and profiting from genocide. The entire relationship between America and Israel is an established pattern of racketeering and violent criminal activity. Literally everything that makes a RICO case, they do it. Bribery, kidnapping, murder, money laundering, terrorism, fraud, embezzlement, trafficking, everything. This is the whole nature of their relationship. And what's more, they do it writ large and out in the open. And one of the key elements in their criminal enterprise between Israel and America, one of the key elements, just like mobsters, is having officials on the payroll, having officials in their pockets, whether it's through bribery or through extortion or intimidation or what have you, so that when you do try to bring a case against them, they own the judge. They own the courts, just like they own the United Nations. Why, America should be required to abstain from any vote on any resolution pertaining to Israel, because a country isn't supposed to be allowed to vote when the matter pertains to themselves. And Israel and America are a single enterprise. It's a single criminal organization. It's a single mafia empire. America is committing genocide in Gaza, and they're just using the Jewish regiment to do it. They shouldn't be allowed to vote on the ceasefire or anything else that involves their henchmen. So yes, as long as the United States of America is a member of the UN, well, then the UN can never be what it was supposed to be designed to be and to do, but it will only ever be just an instrument to do the exact opposite. America makes sure that the United Nations will never be an instrument of peace and stability. It will never be a tool to prevent war and conflict. It will just be a mute assembly of powerless nations who are gagged and bound and gagged by rules and protocols that the boss never has to follow. Helpless observers of American aggression and impunity. All the countries of the world send their ambassadors to New York just to affirm American supremacy and exceptionalism, and to reiterate their own subjugation, and irrelevance. But the people of the world, the populations of the countries who send their ambassadors to New York, are fed up. They're fed up and they're waking up. And like I said, we've read the UN Charter. We've read Article 6. We've read Article 5. We've read Article 4. And we've read Article 24. And we know perfectly well that the United States can be expelled from the United Nations. And that's what the grassroots globally is calling for. And if the UN decides that they are either unwilling or unable to heed that grassroots call, then I think it's going to become very hard to convince Global South countries to continue sending their ambassadors to the UN, because it will have shown itself to be an entirely captured and corrupted and colonized institution. You can't enforce your own membership rules. If you can't eject from the UN and from the Security Council, the greatest threat to international security, if you can't even act to halt a genocide because the perpetrators of the genocide can overrule you in your own organization, well, then that's an organization that has no justification to exist.
Okay, there you have it. So the question should have been not what happened, but what's going to happen. That should have been the question. Y'all have to forgive me for that, but I want to run that by you. So you keep your eyes open for that, and then that way you'll know what happened, because it's being explained to you here. Let's take a look at something. Now, I know a lot of you all remember Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She laid it out for you. She said there are 9 points of the global system of white supremacy: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And this is the quote that is being worn in the United States of America, in other countries around the world: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. But let's take a look at the economic side of this thing from someone else's perspective outside of the United States that's not in here, and how they see it. Let's take a look at the sociopathic materialism of the United States.
This is the case with the West. They developed disproportionately in the area of brutality. They place a great deal of importance and value in violence as a kind of virtue. They think that they can claim the moral high ground basically by throwing someone off of a cliff. So this is just a characteristic that they have. They're violent. And this, again, in my opinion, most likely originates in their rather squalid, harsh conditions. Their so-called civilization emerged from harsh conditions. I mean, Europe is cold. The climate is harsh. There's scarce natural resources. Historically, only about a quarter of the terrain in Europe was arable land. So these are people who were struggling to survive. They had to battle for resources. You know, the modern stereotype of Westerners as being soft and pampered and prosperous and so on, this is truly a modern concept, because that has not at all been their history. Material resources became intensely important to them, and whatever means expedited the acquisition of resources, by definition, that was good and admirable. And as I've talked about, the Europeans did not have in their various pagan belief systems any guidance that could enable them to cope with the relative deprivation of their societies. We know that they prioritized the successful acquisition of material resources. And this is the highest good for them. So it doesn't matter for them, it doesn't matter to them that this acquisition is achieved by means of savage oppression, if it's achieved by deceit or treachery or theft. If violence or cunning can succeed, then success is all that matters. If violence and cunning succeed, then it also necessarily means in their minds that peacefulness and honesty are impractical virtues. And an impractical virtue is the same thing as a vice in their mind. In other words, if it prevents you from acquiring resources, then it is categorically inferior and wrong. And that will apply to any real civilized values, whether it's peacefulness or honesty or wisdom or restraint or sacrifice or compassion or honor or what have you. None of these virtues deserve respect in their eyes if they hinder you from conquest and pillage. This attitude would be further cemented by the fact that their approach enables you to conquer and pillage genuinely superior cultures and civilizations who adhere to those so-called impractical virtues. If you were truly better than us, in other words, we wouldn't have your stuff. We wouldn't be able to take all your things. We wouldn't be able to take you over. If your civilization was actually superior, then we wouldn't be able to conquer you. That's the thinking. That's the thinking, and that's the message. Their message is, your civilization is undeveloped because we were able to conquer you. And because we were able to conquer you, we are superior. But don't worry, we're here to civilize you now. They have an actual disdain for any values, for any morals, for any principles that impede in any way material acquisition. You can translate material acquisition to, in modern parlance, to productivity. So anything that impedes so-called productivity is belittled or outright despised. Even if that is conscience, even if it's upholding trust, even if it's health, even if it's parenthood for that matter. They have to make you think that any other system of prioritization is archaic and obsolete and backwards, that is incompatible with so-called modernity. And modernity, when they say it, just means sociopathic materialism, which treats moral values and principles as decorative extras that should never interfere with so-called productivity. Their whole so-called civilization developed and has been driven by an obsession with material deprivation, which evolved into a sanctification of anyone who successfully acquired abundant material goods and resources, whoever has amassed wealth. Those people are considered to be the most admired, the most respected, the most important, the most authoritative, the most honorable, the wisest people in society. And thus the whole system of society that they designed is designed to serve those people and to idolize them and glorify them and pay homage to them. From the time of the European warlords to the time of the European feudal lords to now and the lords of business and capital. That's why, for instance, their proof that an economy is healthy and successful is that the economy has produced X number of billionaires. Wealth is the basis of authority. That's how these people think. They want to ensure that everyone thinks that moral values and principles are negotiable and that ultimately they're disposable, because the only thing that ultimately matters is material success at any cost. It's a marauder mentality. If we abandon all of the traits and the characteristics of our civilization that make it superior, then we will become actually inferior, because we will have joined a game in which they already excel. The game of violence and ruthless materialism. It's like if an athlete of one sport agrees to compete with an athlete of another sport in that other athlete's sport. It's like if a golfer or a chess champion agrees to compete in a boxing match with a boxer. It's a rigged competition simply due to the incompatibility of the skill sets. And that's the case of the Muslims and people in the Global South generally, who have more mature, more evolved cultures and civilizations, if they agree to play the barbarian game of the West. This is a case of you accepting that the emperor's clothes are actually the most stylish and most luxurious clothes that you can wear. And so you agree to strip away everything that actually makes you elegant and dignified and protected from the elements, and you want to look like the emperor. And at the end of that game, it won't be that the emperor has no clothes, it will be that the emperor has your clothes, even if they don't fit him. And you'll be left there standing naked, like a fool. At which point the emperor will tell you that you're a naked heathen, and he'll teach you how to dress. That's the game that they want us to play.
Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I have in my hand a book written by a white gentleman. His name is Michael Bradley. and the title of this book is The Iceman Inheritance. Prehistoric Sources of Western Man's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression. The foreword was written by Dr. John Henry Clark, but what we're going to look at now is what the author, Michael Bradley, has to say in his book about what we are talking about now. Under chapter 1, Greek Gifts in Western Technology, he states the following: this book is racist. Among other things, I will attempt to show that racism itself is a predisposition of but one race of mankind, the white race. I believe that I can show that our converging contemporary crises, like racism itself, have their origins in the prehistory of the white race alone. We attribute various threats to our survival to man's folly, but this is a conscious and self-protected euphemism. Nuclear war, environmental pollution, resource rape, all are primary threats to our survival and are all the result of a peculiarly Caucasoid behavior, Caucasoid values, and Caucasoid psychology. There is no way to avoid the truth. The problem with the world is white men. If this insight has generally escaped us, it is only because we Caucasoids have dictated much history, written most of it, and judge it in terms of our own self-image. But we have never looked at ourselves in an objective biological mirror. And that is what we shall now proceed to do. Our racial psychology has brought the world to the brink of disaster. We therefore have some obligation to attempt to correct matters, and there isn't much time. The task is a hopeless vanity. The obligation is betrayed if we are unwilling to try to know ourselves. Even if we undertake racial psychoanalysis in good faith, difficulties arise. There are so many defense mechanisms designed to obscure the profile of our Caucasoid racial personality. For instance, one of the most potent contemporary defense mechanisms is the existence of liberal anthropology. The tendency of modern anthropology is to deny the very concept of race. It is a position most vehemently articulated by Ashley Montagu among contemporary writers. I will argue that the denial of racial behavioral differences is at best a Greek gift that serves to cloak our true nature. The denial of race and racial proclivities is a mechanism to disguise the white race proclivity for racism. Now that's a lot. But now let's go back here and let's take a look at what Dr. John Henry Clark states in the foreword. He wrote the foreword to this book, The Iceman Inheritance, authored by Michael Bradley. Europeans were by no means the pioneers of human civilization. Half of man's recorded history had passed before anyone in Europe could read or write. The priests of Egypt began to keep written records between 4000 and 3000 BC. But more than 2,000 years later, the poems of Homer were still being circulated in the Greek city-states. By word of mouth, Shortly after 3000 BC, while the pharaohs were building the first pyramids, Europeans were creating nothing more than distinguished than huge garbage heaps. Ironically, like the pyramids, they are still endure and are known to archaeologists as kitchen middens. At the time when the Babylonian king Hammurabi, about 2000 BC, caused the laws of a complex society to be carved of stone, the most advanced Europeans were people like the Swiss lake dwellers, simply agriculturalists who lived in shelters built over water to protect themselves from beasts and men. In a word, until after 2000 BC, Europe was in a Neolithic or New Stone Age. This was, in truth, a great age in man's history. The age in which man learned to make and use sharp tools, weave cloth, build living quarters, domesticate animals, plant seeds, harvest crops, and sense the turning cycles of the months and years. But the Near East, Egypt, the Euphrates, and the Tigris valleys, the islands of Crete, and the shores of the Aegean Sea, which belong more to Asia than to Europe, had reached and passed the Neolithic 2,000 years before Europe. Now this is amazing, and I marvel at people that I've run into that seems to have this air of I'm better than you, I'm more intelligent than you are. So it's very important for us to understand the ancient story and ancient records so we can know what's what and who's who. Let's take a look at the illusion of Western education. Y'all hold on a minute.
Well, I mean, everyone everywhere, in every country, says that their education system is bad. I don't think I've ever been to any country where the people thought that their education system was, that they were satisfied with their schools. Much less, actually proud of their education system. Everyone thinks that their education system is the worst. But there's another common opinion, which is that whether people say it or not, if they're in the global South, there's a holdover idea from colonialism that education in the West is superior. The aspiration is always to get a degree overseas, in the UK or America or wherever else, to get a bachelor's or master's or PhD, because it's more prestigious to have a degree from the West. People imagine that if you have a degree from the West, then it means that you are more qualified than someone who studied in your own country. This is one of those few remaining areas in which people are still unself-conscious about expressing explicit belief in Western supremacy, It's getting less socially acceptable to be enamored with the West. Even if people still actually do feel enamored with the West, it's less acceptable socially to express that explicitly, but not in the area of education. People will still say, as if it's a fact of nature, that Western education is the best in the world, and they'll pursue higher education in Europe or America or wherever else. Or they'll push their kids to do that. Because this aspect of psychological colonization hasn't ever really been challenged or confronted. But it has to be. This is a crucial point, really, because this mindset is going to block everything else about psychological decolonization. I mean, I'm sorry to put it this way, but if you think that whiter education is higher education, then you'll never be able to see yourself or see your teachers or see your scholars or your experts as anything but inadequate and inferior. And of course, this is a false perception of reality imposed by colonialism and Eurocentric narratives that forever casts the people of the global South as nothing but supporting side characters in the story of the world. And that story is a work of fiction. You're not only believing lies about yourself and your nations, but you're believing lies about the West. Lies about the West that even Westerners don't believe anymore. I mean, it's a strange state of affairs when the only people left in the world who still cling to the idea of Western supremacy are non-Westerners. I mean, you're like someone who's trying to jump from the iceberg onto the Titanic after they've collided. For too long, we've been led to believe that Western education is supreme, that a degree from the West is more valuable and signifies greater level of expertise and higher standards than a degree from one of the universities in our own country. But look, higher education in the Muslim world and in the global South not only competes with the West, but it often surpasses the West. That's the reality. Our people are just as intelligent, they're just as educated as Westerners, and usually even more so. It's not prestigious to hold a degree from the West. That doesn't make you any more qualified or more capable than anyone else. Our education institutions in the global South and in the Muslim world are nurturing some of the brightest minds on this planet. Minds that challenge the status quo. Minds that innovate and minds that create and that can connect the modern world with our heritage, with our culture, with our deen, with our history, for a more comprehensive and contextualized understanding. Because look, we don't live in your context. We don't exist as your supporting cast in a movie about you. I mean, we are talking about America. It's a vacuum. It's an isolated, peculiar anomaly of a society. We don't live or understand the world in that contextual vacuum. Our context is a continuum from the first Laylatul Qadr, when Rasulullah ﷺ began receiving wahi, until this Ramadan, 1,457 Hijri years later. We're part of a train of transmission of Islam from that time until today and onwards into the countless generations of the future. That's our context. And that automatically gives our education and our scholars and our academics and our students a more enlightened, a more illuminated appreciation of learning and knowledge. And it contextualizes the concept of excellence, what it means, what it's for, why it matters. And it has nothing to do with you or your context. We were serious about education for centuries. I mean, the oldest university in the world is our university. At least 2 centuries before they even had a university in Europe. If our education was deteriorated, it was under colonization. And it's still today psychological, mental colonization that makes us continue to imagine that our education systems are inadequate. You know, all they really have left in the West is this Western-centric ranking system for universities telling the world that they have the best universities. But that's just branding, like a handbag. It's actually only worth $20, but they're selling it for $200 because of the logo. The actual value of Western education is mediocre at best these days. You know, the best eye doctor that I ever had and the best pair of glasses that I ever had was made in Gaza and was by a doctor in Gaza. And I have some pretty complex issues with my eyesight, but that doctor was able to identify and understand those problems within maybe 3 minutes. And then he made me the best prescription lenses that I've ever had. And that's just one example out of many examples from my own life and experience. Without exception, I have found that the knowledge and skill levels of professionals in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa far surpass anything that I ever encountered when I was living in the U.S. All educated and trained in their own countries. The landscape of higher education in our part of the world is evolving rapidly. I mean, there is a surge in institutions and student enrollments throughout the Muslim world and throughout the global South. Our countries are witnessing unprecedented growth in institutional numbers and student populations. We are actively shaping the future of academia in the world. Meanwhile, enrollment in higher education in the West is in free fall. I mean, no one can afford it. And the quality and the utility of the education that they get isn't worth it. You know, I used to tutor a high school student in Turkey, and the things that they were learning at that level of school, high school, was beyond what bachelor's degree students study in America. The depth and the breadth of their study, the military discipline and structure of their education was astonishing. It was so impressive. So we need to shake off this notion that there's any prestige attached to a Western degree. And in fact, we need to shake off this idea that a degree has anything to do with prestige. Again, it's just like an overpriced handbag. A handbag has a purpose, and it isn't prestige. Education has a purpose, and it isn't prestige. If you start focusing on the actual purposes of things, then maybe you won't be as misled. Maybe you won't be as fooled and misdirected the way that they're trying to do to you. Because again, the education, the learning that's taking place in our schools is top-notch. And it's producing people with outstanding skills and acumen. And that's what education is supposed to do. Your degree is supposed to signify that you know something. It isn't supposed to be a banner declaring your class status and your level of privilege. Because again, if you attach high status and privilege to having a mediocre Western education just because it is Western, then you are reinforcing colonized mentalities. You're attaching value to Westernness and giving that more value than the actual value of your education or the actual standard of your education. Like it matters more to you that you got your mediocre education in the West than it matters that it is a mediocre education. Like the mediocrity of the education is somehow trumped by the fact that you got that in the West. That somehow that changes the mediocrity to excellence. Well, it doesn't. And if this attitude persists, well, you're not going to get the most genuinely qualified people into the positions that they need to be in order for your society to flourish and succeed. You're going to be putting people in positions who worship the West and who belittle their own society and their society's achievements and its history and its culture and its beliefs and its heritage. In other words, you're going to be putting people in charge of your country, of your society, who look at you with the same disdain that the colonizers do. And they're going to run things in accordance with what they think the colonizers will approve of, because they're hopelessly mesmerized by the West, to the extent that they think Western approval is more important than the flourishing of your society and the success of your society. They will actually be opposed to political independence and economic sovereignty, because they hold their own people in contempt. And they think that nothing is good unless the West is being obeyed or being emulated. And that's a massive threat to your society. Really, it's an existential threat. Because, I mean, look, the way the West has run their own societies has resulted in a miserable situation, a catastrophic situation. If you follow them, you will ruin your society the same way that they ruined theirs. And we know that's true because they have ruined theirs. And I mean that quite literally. They're not even reproducing. They're dying out. The way that they've run their societies, run their economies, run their economic and political system has left them with dwindling populations to the point where they're replacing themselves with robots and automation. That's not a successful model. And the fact that it's an unsuccessful model is part of the whole reason why the global economy is shifting out of the West. If you follow their way, they will destroy the East and they will destroy the South the same way that they destroyed their own lands within the next century or less. No, this has to be stopped. Our psychological decolonization is necessary, literally, for the existential longevity of the human race, because the mentality of the colonizers is inherently self-destructive. There's nothing to learn from that except what not to do and how not to run a society. So yes, it is fundamentally dangerous to hold their education as being better than ours, because it absolutely is not. I would even support giving hiring preferences to graduates who have degrees from local institutions, not only because they're very likely better qualified, but also just to break that colonized mindset once and for all. You know, if no Muslims and no one else in the global South went to study in the West, if we boycotted Western universities and institutions for the next 2 or 3 generations of students, say, it wouldn't decrease our number of scholars, our number of experts and professionals in the slightest. And the quality of our scholars and the quality of our experts and the quality of our professionals wouldn't be even slightly lowered. We lose nothing by not sending our people over there to get overpriced, mediocre education, and we gain nothing by sending them over there, except maybe more people who will just prolong the misimpression that mediocre Western education is superior.
Okay. There you have it. Wow. I have to agree with a lot of what the brother has said, because I have ran into people and been around people who have college degrees. Is almost phenomenal. You know, they have this air that I have a college degree. I have a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree. But in dealing with these people, I must say, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but those have been some of the dumbest I ever seen in my life. I don't want to do no cussing here. I had one that lived around me. We ain't calling no name. She goes to church every Sunday, religiously. But one day she told me, she said, I need a man. I'm looking for me a man. I said, well, you go to church religiously every Sunday. Are there any men in the church? Oh, yeah, there's plenty of men in the church. I said, are they good men? Oh, yeah, no doubt. I don't know all of them, but I think majority of them are good men. Okay, well, what are you talking about? Just get you one of them. I want a real man. And I couldn't figure that one out. That stumped me, and I had another one told me, well, I'm from Belize, and my country has never been colonized. I said, well, okay. What does that mean exactly? Well, I'm just saying, I'm from Belize, and my country has never been colonized. And I'm trying to see, now I know this guy ain't standing here telling me that because he came from another country, he got a job working in this country, but in his mind, because he came from a place that has never been colonized, that he is better than me, he's more intelligent than me. What is it exactly that are you saying? What do you? Well, I'm not saying anything other than the country that I came from has never been colonized. Okay, there's another piece of stupid that I never. I don't think I'll ever get over that and what that was supposed to signify in some kind of way. But let's take a look at the economic power. Hold on a minute.
Well, I mean, my content is in English because that's my language. I mean, if I were proficient in Arabic, then my content would be in Arabic. My content is in English because I have dismally failed to become a polyglot. You know, it's like the old joke about what do you call someone who speaks many languages? Multilingual. What do you call someone who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call someone who speaks only 1 language? American. My content back in the day, when I was on Facebook, it spread across Egypt and across the Arab world because there were people who were kind enough to volunteer to translate it for me. This is really a blameworthy and guilty shortcoming on my part, that I don't speak or I'm not fluent in any of the languages in the Muslim world. I mean, I'm somewhat passable in Arabic. I know a little bit of Urdu, a tiny bit of Turkish, and a tiny bit of Bahasa Malayu. Other than that, I used to be conversant in Spanish when I lived in the States, but that's mostly lost from lack of practice. So no, I don't consciously target my content to Western Muslims or Muslims in the West. I mean, even the videos that are directly critiquing the West, you know, and verbally directed at the West, I'm not specifically aiming at a Western audience. I'm aiming at a Muslim audience, primarily in the Muslim world, but I'm just handicapped by the fact that I can only properly express myself in English. But I've gotten some feedback that basically because my content is in English and I discuss the West and I discuss Islam, so then Muslims in the West think that I'm talking specifically to them. I think that's partly why they think that. And then another reason why they think that is just because I think that they have absorbed into their own psyches some of the characteristics of Westerners. One of which being that they think that the West is the center of the world. It's that same sort of insular, self-absorbed quality that just permeates Western thought processes. But okay, if I was going to address Muslims in the West specifically, that's probably where I would begin. I mean, you need to understand, brothers and sisters in the West, that you are in the periphery, not the center. Your issues, your views, your opinions, your perspectives, your priorities are not of any particular interest to the rest of the Ummah. I'm not saying that as a put down. It just is what it is. And I think it's important to understand. I think it's important for you to understand, just to get some sense of where you stand in relation to your brothers and sisters in the Muslim world. I mean, the general standard of English language online Muslim content is quite low compared to other languages like Arabic or Malay or even Indonesian, for example. And the general subject matter that Muslims are covering in English is mostly irrelevant to most people in the Muslim world. It doesn't resonate. I mean, whether you like it or not, or whether you're aware of it or not, it's very Western-centric, both in terms of the subject matter itself and in terms of the mentality or the approach to the subject matter. No one can relate to it in the Muslim world. There's a disconnection between Muslims in the West, Muslims in the Western periphery, say, and Muslims in the center. And this is, you know, common. It's very similar to the disconnection between any diaspora community and the community back home. And I think this is partially due to the fact that diaspora communities struggle more to have an identity that is distinct from the people where they are and aligned with their people back home. And ironically, this just makes them a little more awkward, you know, and even more unrelatable to their origin communities back home. And I think this is particularly the case when the diaspora community is in the West. But then the thing is, part of trying to maintain an identity and a connection for a diaspora community is to take some kind of interest in what's going on in their origin countries, or in the center, I should say. Because obviously, you know, there are many, many Muslims in the West who don't come from Muslim countries, who aren't immigrants or the children of immigrants, but are people like me, who are Westerners by origin. So better to say that there's a tendency in the periphery to take an interest in what goes on in the center as a way of trying to feel connected to the center. But you see, that's problematic, because the reality is you're not connected to the center, and the center's not connected to you. You know, it's like if the Arab Badu, the Bedouin, who embraced Islam but did not make hijrah, thought that they could opine about matters in Medina. You're not in the loop. And you only want to be in the loop for your own personal identity reasons, not because you have any real stake in the societies that you're, you know, opining about. You don't have a stake in them. You don't necessarily understand them. So you see, it's a very Western mentality. It's a very entitled and presumptuous mentality that actually belittles the importance of being there in those societies, immersed in those societies, understanding those societies, being invested in those societies, and actually being affected by what happens. You know, in some ways, it's like foreign investors who can move in and move out. Diaspora interest in the Muslim world is like capital. It can flow in and flow out and flow all over the place without ever taking root. And it never has to deal with any consequences. Again, I'm not trying to say this in any way, in an insulting way or as a put down, but I think it's a concern. I mean, the very fact that many Muslims who do make hijrah to the Muslim world then feel almost immediately disillusioned, that shows the extent of the chasm between Muslims in the West and Muslims in the Muslim world, and the chasm between their understandings and how they live Islam in their daily lives, and what Islam means to them. And I'm not saying, by the way, that I think Muslims in the West have to make hijrah. I don't think that's a clear issue at all. I mean, there's a sound religious argument to be made that as long as you are free to practice in the West, you know, practice the most important pillars of Islam, like the Salah, then you're not obliged to leave. I mean, even the demarcations of Darul Islam and Darul Kufr, or Darul Harb, in the classical ijtihad, those have become very blurry in the current era. So I'm not saying that. But you are out of touch with the Muslim world. Generally speaking, by and large, with the global ummah, you're out of touch. And frankly, this impacts your own conceptions, your own understanding, your own character and your own identity as Muslims. And you are impacted by Western society. And it's not a healthy impact. Obviously, you are the best people in the West, no question. But you're also not immune to the pollution that's all around you. And I'm not just talking about the haram that's all around you. I'm talking more about the psychological and intellectual damage that Western society inflicts on their people. How it normalizes very abnormal approaches to life, abnormal ways of thinking and being. You know, the depths of things are reduced in the West. It makes everything shallow. It is a trivializing culture. The West is allergic to profundity and to maturity. And this is very hard to protect yourself against. So in my opinion, I think it's important for you to try to develop connections with the Muslim world, real connections. I'm not really sure how to do that except by living there. But if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to make hijrah, if you're not going to spend time in the Muslim world, or if you can't do that, but you still want to show an interest in the Muslim world, or positively impact the Muslim world, then obviously I think the best way to do that would be to focus on building influence in the West. I mean, the problems that are plaguing not only the Muslim world, but the planet as a whole originate there. And Muslims around the world expect you to do something about it. We don't need you to be involved in the issues in our countries. You know, whether it's about getting outraged over raves in Saudi Arabia or some girl eating pork in Indonesia. Nobody really cares what you think about that. I'm sorry to say. I mean, I've talked about this before. There's the story about the drowning babies in a river floating by a man, and he goes into the river and tries to save one baby at a time. And another man tries to go upstream to prevent whoever it is that's throwing the babies in the river in the first place. He's going to where the problem is coming from. Well, that's where you are. You're already there. You're at the port from which the sickness is being exported to the rest of the world. So we don't need you to worry about the people in the Muslim world who are getting sick or who are getting infected. We need you to try to stop the disease from its point of origin. I mean, if Muslims had stood up against the LGBT agenda 10 years ago, for example, we wouldn't have its tentacles reaching into the Muslim world today. I mean, I said that you are in the periphery, but that's just another way of saying that you're on the frontiers, you're on the front lines. All the forces that are reaching into the Muslim world to cause fitna are reaching into the Muslim world from where you are. So if you're going to get mad at Muslims in the Muslim world for being influenced by the West, or for being subjugated, or for capitulating to the West, then actually you're only indicting yourselves for failing to protect those Muslims in the Muslim world from the West. Now, just to be clear, I'm not talking about any sort of violence. I'm not talking about, expecting people to make some sort of individual improvised jihad against the West or any nonsense like that. But I mean, you are in countries that do provide a lot of mechanisms for participation, and not just political participation, but activism and protest and organizing and so on. I mean, think about that. Consumer spending, The consumer spending power of Muslims in America is worth roughly $200 billion. You know that back in 2010, they thought that the American Muslim population was going to possibly reach 6.2 million by 2030. Okay, it's 2023 now, and you're already 7 million. That's the same size, roughly, as the Hispanic market was back in 1983 in the United States, and you're growing at an even faster pace than they did. Corporations are going to care about the Muslim market in America, in the West. That's power. You can get the attention of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. You can negotiate with them. You can use the leverage of the importance, the growing importance, of your consumer power in the United States and in the West generally. I don't think that there's better potential anywhere for democratizing the private sector, democratizing private sector influence. There's no better potential for that anywhere in the world, better than America, better than in the West. And if you can connect and coordinate with the Muslim world, it would be even more powerful. I mean, that's an economic force in the trillions of dollars, not millions, not billions. And you don't have to use that power just to get, you know, Nike sports hijabs or halal fast food, you know, or Muslim, you know, so-called representation in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or what have you. You don't have to even work for those things. The importance of your market will already make those types of things inevitable. Those types of things should show you that the business sector recognizes your importance. So don't squander that importance on trivial things. These companies are political entities. I mean, political parties in the West are just front organizations for the business sector. And the business sector is trying to win you over. You matter to them. You matter to the business sector. So show them what matters to you. Don't just be like some other minority group in the West who just get happy when big business notices them. Approach them as Muslims. Approach them like a Muslim would. Approach them like they are the Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd that they are. And use their interest in you to influence them. You know, sure, we'll buy your new Reebok sports hijab as long as it's 100% Muslim made, and as long as your factories in Indonesia and Pakistan and wherever else pay fair wages and have good working conditions, and as long as you don't use your paid lobbyists to support legislation and policies that are harmful to the interests of those countries, and as long as you use your lobbyists to support legislation and policies that align with our values and our priorities, sure, then we'll buy your products. But earning Muslim consumer dollars is going to take, or it should take, more than superficial gestures to our community. We expect for you to use your power in ways that align with our interests and priorities. In fact, we don't even need you to make Islamic-oriented products. We don't care about that. We want substantive support for our interests and concerns. That's the price of our brand loyalty. You know that there are only about 50 companies that have stayed on the Fortune 500 list since it was first published 70 years ago in 1955. And most of those are consumer companies. They survive because they can read market trends, and they're responsive to market trends. Well, there's no market in the West that they're looking at right now more than they're looking at Muslims. We're going to be 30% of the entire global population by 2050. And if our consumer behavior can be coordinated, even loosely, as a mechanism for influence, we'll be able to bend the power of the private sector to our will. There are a lot of things you can do in the West. And that's to say nothing about building your own companies and private sector power, your own private sector power, Muslim private sector power, and developing connections with the Muslim world through those activities, trade, investment, and so on. If you're active in the economic sphere, then you will automatically be more effective than if you're focused on being active in the political sphere. Decisions made by the boards of directors of corporations are more impactful than decisions made in the House of Representatives. I mean, let's be honest. The decisions that are made in the Congress are dictated to them by corporate boards anyway. I mean, you could send 500,000 letters to your congressman, and they won't count as much as one telephone call from a CEO. And I think that Muslims in the West are in the best position to pursue these kinds of things. And you don't have to ally with anybody, you know, the right wing or the left wing. You just have to ally with each other and with Muslims abroad, in other Western countries and in the Muslim world. You know, don't let them fool you into thinking that you're a minority. That's a mental construct. And the only thing that makes it even real in any way is your own disconnection from the rest of the ummah. I mean, the owners and controllers of global financialized capital don't care about nation states and borders. They don't think like that, and they don't operate like that. And neither should you. But again, that doesn't mean focusing your attention on the Muslim world and what happens in the Muslim world. It means working from where you are with a sense of solidarity, knowing that what you do over there can help us over here.
Okay, there you have it. We are back. We're going to go to a commercial break, and then we're going to deal with materialism and whether or not it's doomed in the West. And I also want to deal with this religion thing. But right now, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hold on a minute.
All right, everybody. Don't forget, the greatest focal point in your life is when preparedness and opportunity meet. Hello, I'm Tarhaka Amana El Bey. I want to give a shout out to all the brothers and sisters across the country that got our secure party and credit information. It was now officially operating in the private. Keep in mind, you can access the direct treasury account, private banking, knowing the difference between public and private and being able to function correctly. Do that OID. Learn about your 1099s. You can do a whole lot of stuff once you have the knowledge to do so. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. That's TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Fill out the Contact Us form. Send it to me and I'll send you my free report. TarhakaDebtElimination.org.
Okay, we are back. Now, let's take a look at this thing involving whether or not materialism is doomed in the West. Let's take a look at that and see what's going on with that. And I also want to come to you with this stuff out of some more Michael Bradley stuff. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at it, and because I got to find my way in this book here. All right. Materialism doomed in the West. Let's see.
So the overriding mindset in the West is one of materialism. This state of deprivation that they were in, or they perceived themselves to be in, amplified the importance of material resources for them, and they became all important. So obviously they took a path that only compounded their immersion in the dunya, and their entire so-called civilization developed from this particular bent in their worldview and their concept of life. I would argue that with this beginning, atheism was always going to be an inevitability in the West, because basically their whole so-called civilization originated from the belief, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the kuffar's belief in the Quran. He said that they think that there's nothing beyond this worldly life. We live and we die, and time is the only thing that destroys us. Well, there's nowhere for that to go but atheism. From capitalism to Marxism, from so-called empiricism to even their version of Christianity. All of it reflects an absolute and exclusive belief in dunya. Yes, even Christianity. I mean, literally, you turned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into a physical human being walking on the earth. And you took real-world actions out of the equation of salvation, thereby foundationally separating religion and worship from actual life in this world. You know, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, meaning even with your Christianity, you're still allowed to do whatever it is you think you have to do to get by in the dunya, regardless. This became the separation of church and state. It was a natural progression, because you never thought religion should interfere with worldly affairs in the first place. You never thought it should interfere with how you actually live your life. I mean, this is what was principally behind their grievances against the church and its authority in the first place. They themselves, the church, were using religion for power and for control in the dunya and for accumulating wealth. They even used religion for worldly purposes. And then, of course, as we know, they utilized religion, utilized Christianity as a propaganda cover and a manipulation tactic for colonization. So religion was only ever a flimsy veneer laid on top of a worldly, materialistic, wealth and resource-obsessed mentality and an approach to life. Now, part of our process of psychological decolonization requires, again, the objective dismantling of the myths of Western supremacy. The myth that their mentality and their approach to the world is somehow superior to ours. Well, as they say, you will know a tree by its fruits. So whether it's the pagan period or the camouflaged atheism of the pre-Enlightenment Christian period or the modern, openly godless period of the West, the fruits are stunningly bitter and evil. This mentality has been behind colonization, chattel slavery, the feudal system, countless wars, and created societies with unprecedented concentration of wealth. There's vicious class warfare, disease, mental and emotional illness, depression, suicide, medically supervised murder, the Holocaust, dozens of genocides, the development of weaponry that can destroy the entire planet within minutes, and in fact whole economies centered on the development of these types of technologies. Imagine a whole economy powered by improving techniques of violence and slaughter. I mean, did you know that that's why you have an iPhone? That's why there's the internet. That's why there's GPS systems, mobile phone cameras, computers, Bluetooth, on and on. All of these things, all of these were developed for military purposes, purposes of warfare. They've never been innovative for the sake of humanity. They were never innovative for the sake of making our lives better, but for the sake of taking our lives better. But to them, in their materialistic mindset, their dunya-centric mentality, the fact that these killing technologies have passed into the commercial sector and everyone gets to enjoy them, so they think that that absolves them of any moral blame for their passion for murder and pillage and plunder. That's their main defense of their so-called civilization when you criticize it. They say, we have nice things. We invented cool, useful stuff. They think that they're exonerated from the contribution of misery and bloodshed and carnage that they inflicted on the world in order to achieve this material contribution. Never mind that for most of this technology, unspeakable suffering and oppression and exploitation are ongoing requirements of production. The usefulness of the technology justifies the means in their mind. They think that these material achievements legitimize them and make them superior. Never mind the human cost, the immorality, the evils through which they achieve those material accomplishments. Cultivation of intellect and the advancement of knowledge for the benefit of society is intrinsic in Islam. And this is what motivated our thinkers, motivated our scientists and inventors and so on. There was no martial or commercial dimension to their motives. In fact, there are so many things in Islam that we cannot engage in because even if they're lucrative, they're immoral. So unlike the West, we forego the profitable in favor of the moral and the ethical, whereas they forego the moral and the ethical in favor of the profitable. It's completely different. The whole ethos of Islam, the character of Islam, is service. We literally think of ourselves as slaves. We serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We serve our families. We serve our communities. We serve our nation, our ummah, and we serve broader humanity. We neither have a sense of deprivation nor entitlement. We were taught that the best wealth is contentment, not that contentment is found in wealth. We understand and we accept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Razaq, the provider of sustenance, and that our provision has been written for us before we even came out of the womb. And that's not fatalism. It's contentment, it's gratefulness, and it's satisfaction. You know how they talk about the so-called scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset? Well, we have neither. We have an assured mindset. We have the assurance that our provision has already been fixed for us. So we never have to compromise. We never have to humiliate ourselves for money. We never have to sell out. We never have to exploit or manipulate or cheat or pillage or subjugate other people just to get material resources. And we know that it's the same for our children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written their provision as well. So you don't see Muslims avoiding having children because they're afraid of how much it's going to cost. And again, look what these contrasting attitudes have wrought for their respective peoples, for them and for us. Demographically, the West is going extinct. The whole global economy is shifting in our direction precisely because your way of thinking has betrayed you, and our way of thinking has kept us the most cohesive, the biggest, and the youngest population in the world. Western so-called civilization has been just a moment, just a flash of light. Yes, it's bright, and yes, they move fast when it flashes, but we're walking in the sunlight, past, present, and future. So you shouldn't be amazed at the brief flare that the West has been, no matter how startling and how impressive it may seem. It's just a spark, a hiccup between a dark history and a dark future. It will be just another footnote in our history. And their period of domination and power in the world and influence is going to be a footnote in their history. And look at the difference. The overwhelming majority of Western history has been miserable struggle, deprivation, strife, cruelty, and barbarism. That's between their flashes of prosperity and stability. But see how they are during those flashes, even more barbarous and more violent than when they're in their periods of darkness. They committed more atrocities and more brutal savagery in modern times than they ever did in pre-modern times. Their periods of ascendancy are characterized by intensified and larger scale violence and oppression than their periods of decline. When they're doing well, relatively speaking, it does not make them better, it makes them worse. All the negative characteristics of their so-called civilization just get amplified and intensified. Meanwhile, the only time that you see the Muslim world deteriorating in its values and its religiosity and overall moral character is when it is being dominated by the West. Any moral decline in our part of the world is directly and causally connected to colonization. Even in some of our most pillaged and colonized countries, our people remain steadfast in their principles and their moral character. And our poor, our oppressed, our exploited our victimized populations, victimized by the West. Our people are still happier and more content than Westerners, more hospitable, more kind, more generous, more peaceful, more compassionate, and more rooted and more grounded and more conscientious about morality. We have to be forced to be bad. Well, they have to be forced to be good. The West causes confusion, it causes cognitive dissonance, and it causes mania. But Islam causes clarity and certainty and calm. We as a nation, as an ummah, did not originate from the pre-Islamic desert Arabs, nor from the pre-Islamic communities of the subcontinent, or the Malay archipelago, or the peoples of North Africa, and so on. Whatever any of us was before we were Muslim, when Islam came, we were born as a new nation on the earth. Or rather, we merged into the history of believers from the time of Adam alayhi salam, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of tribe, location, language, or what have you. Our belief caused us to transcend our connection to the history and the development of our respective peoples. And the nation that we became was one based upon, built upon, and developed from religious and moral beliefs, not any of our various anthropological backgrounds. So yes, the West is what it is because of how they began. And we are what we are because of how we began. And that's why we are a nation unlike any other. Because we never had a primitive beginning. Because our origin literally comes from the message sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're a nation born from revelation. So right from the start, we began as a moral civilization. We didn't become one. We are the moral civilization, the only moral civilization that ever existed across time from Adam alayhi salam until today. There never was a time when we weren't civilized. We don't consider the Jahiliyyah period, the ignorant period of our respective people's histories as any more relevant to who we are today than a man would consider his period of development in the womb of his mother as relevant to who he is today as an adult. For non-Muslims, for the West, they have yet to emerge. They have yet to transcend their history, and they have yet to, therefore, become truly civilized.
All right, we're back. Now, going back to the Iceman inheritance, prehistoric sources of Western man's racism, sexism, and aggression. Forward written by Dr. John Henry Clark. Dr. Clark, in the introduction, states the following. Throughout their history, which is short in comparison to the history of other peoples, especially the Africans and Asians, they have been astute record keepers. When it suited their purpose, they have also been astute record changers. As a result of the Europeans have caused us to read the history of the world in their favor. This book has provoked some non-Europeans into taking a new view of world history in order to understand how European people related to non-Europeans throughout history. The first thing we learned is that there was no Europe in ancient times. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The first thing we learned is that there was no Europe in ancient times. The geographical area that would later be called Europe was not a functioning entity in the world affairs when early civilizations was being developed in the Nile Valley and other river valleys in Africa and later in Western Asia, now mistakenly called the Middle East. And in mainland Asia, in countries like India, China, and later Japan, when we look at the chronology of world history, we discover that the first real show of European literary intelligence surfaced around 1250 BC, depending on your source, with the publication of two books of folklore, the Odyssey and the Iliad, credited to an author named Homer, who we have little information about. Now, I just want to put that in there to go along with what the gentleman just got through telling us about the doomed, materialism is doomed in the West. Now, we're going to get down into the religion. Matter of fact, I think I'll hold that for last. But let's take a look at the language that we use here in the West. Let's take a look at that. Y'all hold on.
Well, as I said, when the ICJ ruling came down on South Africa's request to order emergency, a typical measure that's taken by independence and liberation movements, anti-colonialist movements, and so on, is to revive the indigenous language, which will inevitably have been replaced by the language of the colonizers, because, of course, colonizers don't just take land. They take our language, they take our culture, they take our identity. The words you use, the words you hear, regulate your thinking. And that's what they were after, regulating your thinking, changing your thoughts, changing your mentality, and the way that you articulate the world to yourself. This is not just about words, it's about thoughts, it's about thinking. So no, I'm not just talking about language literally, like reviving Arabic or Somali or Turkish or what have you. I'm talking about the language that we use to define things, to articulate the world, our lexicon, regardless of what language you're speaking in, linguistically. Because this is about planting our feet firmly in our own paradigm. We have to insist on our own definitions, our own framework, our own lexicon, our own thoughts. That's the language revival that I'm talking about. Because let me be blunt, their language is deception. It's literally impossible for them to not lie. You have to know this from the beginning. You have to know this each and every time you enter into any interaction with a Westerner. Every time they move their lips, they're lying. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I'm serious. All they do is lie. And that isn't because they're always trying to lie, but it's because lies are all they have been told their whole lives. So practically speaking, that comes out to be the same as lying. They're spreading falsehood, but they can't help but spread falsehood. You can only give from what you have, and what they have are lies. And you have to know that going in. These people are deeply invested in opposing any accurate depiction of reality, because the reality that they live in, the reality of what they have done, the reality of their history, and the reality of their present is atrocious. It's inhuman. It's miserable. It's a disgraceful reality, and has been enabled by and is maintained by continuous, incessant, comprehensive lies and deception. But you can think of it in terms of the West not actually being a society or a so-called civilization, but a cult. It's a cult. And like a cult, they have their own weird paradigm. They have their own made-up story about themselves, about their past, and so on. The only way that you can believe them is if you are simply contained within the rigid confines of that cult mentality. And that's what they try to do to the rest of us. Impose this distorted, warped understanding that's nothing but misunderstanding, or rather anti-understanding of the world. They never call things what they are. They speak in euphemisms and opposites. I mean, think about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. They seek to extinguish the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? With their mouths. Means with their words, with the language they use, their linguistic framing of things, means their propaganda. For instance, modernity. Take the word modernity. Actually, modernity just means today, the present, whatever pertains to the modern age, the present age, whatever age that is. You know, what was considered modern 500 years ago was modernity 500 years ago. That's not what they mean when they talk about modernity. What they mean by modernity is Western supremacy, Western hegemony, Western domination. That's what they're really talking about. But by substituting their supremacy with the word modernity, then they can make it sound like and make you think that Western supremacy is just a natural progression of human affairs. And any opposition to Western supremacy is regressive. It's like wanting to go back to the days of horse and carriage. All ways of being that do not conform to Western supremacy and uphold Western supremacy are antiquated, out of date, obsolete, old-fashioned, and backwards. See how they do? With just this one word, modernity, they delegitimize and invalidate any and all rejection of Western domination. That's why you can't use their definitions, because they always misuse them. And if you misuse them the same way that they misuse them, then you will inevitably start thinking the way that they do. You know, if you ask a blind man to describe how something looks and you believe his description instead of what you see with your own eyes, well, I don't know who's more blind, him or you. When you do this, it disables your ability to not only understand yourself and your society properly, but also to correctly understand objectively their society. So you have to dismantle the whole architecture of falsehood and deception that permeates their whole discourse, not only for our own sake, but for theirs as well. I mean, first and foremost, we have to do it because as Muslims, the truth is paramount to us. Muslims are the ones, the only ones, who are religiously obligated to see and understand the world as it really is, obligated to be realistic and unbiased in our assessment and in our judgment. You can't be impartial and unbiased if you're accepting a version of reality from those who are biased and those who are partial. This is basic. I'm talking about what it has done to them to have been raised from birth on incessant lies and fake history, and what it has done to them to live in a world confined within the parameters and within the framework of their cult mentality, their cult paradigm. A cult paradigm that completely prohibits them from recognizing, much less acknowledging or understanding reality as it actually is, which includes the reality of their own actions and their own behavior. They're prohibited from understanding it. We get moved into their paradigms without even realizing it, because we don't grasp the massive cultural and historical context of reality avoidance that underlies everything they say and everything they believe. It's our duty, in my opinion, to dissect whatever they say, like performing an autopsy to determine the time of death and the cause of death. We have to do an examination to determine the cause of the deception and the time when they lost connection to the truth. I'll give you an easy example: capitalism. And the idea of capitalism is to pursue wealth and prosperity, free markets and so on. Well, the actual rule is that you're supposed to be dedicated to my wealth and my prosperity, the employer, the boss, the company. So you're actually, in capitalism, required to subordinate your wealth and your prosperity to mine. This is capitalism in a nutshell. This then became the mentality of colonization. You, your people, your country, Africa, Asia, Latin America, wherever, your function in life is to make me richer. And that's called me civilizing you. If you're not devoted to my prosperity, then you're primitive and problematic. But that's not what they'll say, because the lies are endless. No, we have to look at the West, look at the world from our vantage point, from our perspective, our paradigm, our understanding, and in our language, according to our terms and our definitions. Everything that they say is obfuscation, misinformation, disinformation, and deformation of reality. Nothing is ever going to make sense as long as we go along with that. Another example, and I've talked about this before, is how they want to partition their history according to, pre-enlightenment and post-enlightenment. No, this is just them telling themselves about how much they have progressed and how much they have advanced while actually standing still. From Viking raids to drone strikes, from feudalism to corporatism, they have remained exactly as they always were. I don't care if you used to listen to the Pope and now you listen to BlackRock, it all plays out the same. If you control the way things are talked about, then you control the way things are thought about. So when you give up controlling how things are talked about, then you give up control over your own perception of reality. And if you give up control over your own perception of reality, then you're nothing but a helpless and defenseless fool who will find himself in slavery and in subjugation without even knowing it, just like the Westerners.
Okay. There you have it. Let's take a quick commercial break and then we'll go into the religion.
Once again, don't wait until it's too late. Hi, I'm Tarhaka. Get out of debt now. Use what you already have at your disposal. Try living in the private for the first time in your life. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. What are you going to do when the economy collapses? What are you going to do when life in the public becomes so unbearable you don't think you can survive. There is something you can do now. Gain the benefit now of using the private banking and credit available to you. Avoid the loss of your hard-earned cash, which are debt notes. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. Request my free report by filling out the Contact Us form, and I will rush the report to your email box. Act now. We still have a small amount of time. tarhakadebtelimination.org.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about was this idea that the Christians have now accepted, which is that you can be a moral person and not believe in God. No, you can't. And your society is proof that that's not possible. I mean, you can say it, but it comes down to this. Like you wouldn't accept that, you wouldn't believe that if I were to tell you, for example, that there was a case of police brutality. Okay? There's a case of police brutality, but don't worry, the police are going to investigate it. The police are going to police themselves. Nobody accepts that. Everyone knows that's not real. And that's what you're doing. You're saying you can police yourselves. And we've seen plenty of evidence that you cannot. You absolutely cannot police yourselves any more than your brutal police can police themselves and prevent their own brutality. It doesn't happen. You have to believe, you have to know, and hold yourself accountable to a supreme authority that is independent of you. That's a requirement in life. That's a requirement in the dunya, and everyone knows that, and everyone accepts that. Like if you have, again, if you have, a case of embezzlement or something in a company, the company will investigate and will decide what to do. There's no outside auditor. I mean, why is there an IRS? Internal Revenue Service.
To ensure compliance.
To ensure compliance, to make sure that you pay your taxes. Because otherwise they could say, well, we'll just trust everybody to pay their taxes. Yeah. And then the government would be bankrupt immediately. And you know it. Yeah. But that's the thing. You know it in every practical situation except this one, where you think, no, human beings can police themselves and make themselves moral. No, you can't. And you do nothing but continuously provide us evidence that claim is false. There's no evidence for that claim whatsoever. That you can be a moral person and not believe in God. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. What you can do is feel that you're moral while being completely immoral. That's what has been proven.
Are you watching the
Yeah, because religion and morality has never been anything but a garnish for you. That pretty thing that they put on a meal that you're not even supposed to eat. That just makes it look nice, but nobody eats it. That's not what religion actually is, and that's why there is only one religion actually on earth, and obviously that's Islam. Everything else is a garnish that you put on your culture to make it look prettier, to make it look more moral, to make it look, I don't know, sanctimonious. But you're indistinguishable from no matter what your religion is, you're indistinguishable from people who have no belief in religion. And like I said, you can't even successfully argue with an atheist to justify why they should be religious, why they should believe in God, because they've got you. They put you in what you have accepted to be a corner, which is that they can be moral without God, and you accept that. So where are you left to argue for your religion if you think that religion is only about this? I mean, first of all, like I said, no, you can't. You can't be moral without belief in God, because that's the police policing themselves. and deciding for themselves what's moral and what's not moral, and you will always decide that whatever you do, it's moral. Human beings will always decide. If you give them the power to decide that, they will always decide that whatever it is that I want to do, it's the moral thing. You know, without fail. They will always justify what they do. Just like the West has done for centuries without interruption. You do the most immoral, the most brutal, the most exploitative, the worst things that human beings have ever done on earth, and still you hold your head up high, and claim for yourself that you're the moral authority on earth. When all of your victims know otherwise.
It's kind of tricky when you believe that your beginning is not a clear slate. You don't have a clear slate. You're already a sinner. You're born into that self-loathing.
Well, there's that. But I think even more important than that, all of that is just causes severe dysfunction in you psychologically and emotionally. But I'm interested in practical behavior in real life, real world behavior. What's going on inside your head is your problem. But the way you act in society is my problem, and it's all our problem. But if you believe, like I said it actually in the last session, you have removed conduct from the equation of salvation. And all you have to do is accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I'm good to go. That means you don't believe in anything. That means you don't believe in anything. You don't believe in goodness, you don't believe in evil. You don't believe in either of these things, that either of these things really exist. And you don't believe in judgment. If you actually think that your own conduct has no bearing whatsoever on what's going to happen to you, then everything is arbitrary, which makes you exactly like an atheist. Everything is arbitrary. There's no sense. You're a nihilist. You can call yourself a Christian, but you're a nihilist.
This reminds me of also another story that I remember sharing with you about this man who committed so many sins. The point of his death, he told the instructed his son to cremate him and throw his ashes everywhere because he thought he could escape the wrath of Allah.
Yeah.
And then when he was asked why he had done that, and he had expressed it's due to his out of fear of his wrath.
Yeah, I know that you could punish me.
Yeah, I mean,
I feared you punishing me.
Yeah, this is the basis.
Yeah.
Of your salvation.
Yeah.
This is remarkable.
Knowing the reality of judgment.
Yeah.
Knowing the reality that you have a creator,
right,
and that you are accountable to your creator.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're saying that people can be moral without this, then you're saying that we don't need in society any mechanisms of any kind for anyone for accountability.
I mean, because this example is interesting because he clearly lived his life wrongly, right? But he was stuck, conscious in his, internally, he didn't want what he had done, and that's because of morality.
Well, this is the difference between sin and disbelief. This is why Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we know there's a difference between sinning and disbelieving. There's a difference between sin and kufr. I sin and I know I'm accountable. And I hope to be forgiven, but I fear being punished. If you remove the hope of forgiveness and the fear of punishment, then you're just a nihilist. There's nothing, you believe in nothing. Really. Your conduct is irrelevant. Your conduct is irrelevant to you being a good person, and you being a good person is irrelevant. So, I mean, like I said, you can convince yourself that you're good no matter what you do. Hitler thought he was good, The West has thought that they were good when they were calling their slavery and exploitation and oppression in the global South the white man's burden, telling themselves that they were civilizing the world, civilizing people who were millennia ahead of them in civilization. They thought that they were civilizing people whose civilizations they were trying to destroy. They convinced themselves of that, and they believe it until today. And some of their big, people like Richard Dawkins and Douglas Murray, they believe it until now. They can convince themselves of anything.
Okay, there you have it. We've come down to the close of the broadcast. We're going to convert this thing and throw it up on YouTube, put it out on your social networks, so at your leisure, you'll be able to check it out right there on YouTube. Just click on the links we'll provide. When you get over there, don't forget to subscribe. You can do a thumbs up, a thumbs down, a comment. But what I recommend that you do is listen to this broadcast in its entirety. Okay? I've been your host, Tarhaka Amana El Bay, and until next time, y'all have a good one.
Over 40 years ago, we started on a journey. We planted seeds, we made promises, and kept them. We built relationships with equal parts dignity and respect, focusing entirely on protecting the injured, the mistreated. We put together a way of working that became a way of life. Every case made us stronger. Over 40 years ago, we set out to build a law firm, but what we ended up with was so much more. Farah and Farah. Jacksonville.
Visit MODO.US for the best free play social casino experience wherever you are. Modo offers a huge selection of Vegas-style games with free spins, exciting promotions, and always generous jackpots. You can waste your time with the others, or you can win at Modo. Register today at MODO.US for your free welcome bonus.
Modo is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
Modo.US.